Alright guys, it's about time for this. Monster Hunter has been a major part of my life. Besides improving my gaming ability, it has actually helped me improve my relationship with my brother, as well as create some new long-lasting friendships. It's safe to say that it's more than a game to me. So you can understand my dismay when I haven't had a good Monster Hunter experience in over 2 years, and not with a new Monster Hunter in over 3 years. I'm not going to rant today, yell at Capcom, Sony, Nintendo, Xbox, anyone like that, but rather like to give some insight into what, as a Monster Hunter vet and a consumer, I feel would be a great steps towards the Monster Hunter franchise in the future. So I mentioned I was a Monster Hunter vet. I started with Monster Hunter 1 on the PS2 back in 2006. A buddy introduced me, and I absolutely fell in love with dual swords. I don't know. Dual swords are the tits, basically. Always have been, always will be. So I logged in about 1,000 hours in that game, just doing pretty much everything I could until they shut down the servers, and it was an absolute blast. Loved it. But then I needed something more, so I found out that Monster Hunter continued on the PSP and picked up Monster Hunter Freedom 2 and eventually Monster Hunter Freedom Unite, which I logged over 900 hours in together. I did miss Monster Hunter Freedom, but went back later for about 100 hours or so. It was pretty much just a port of Monster Hunter 1 anyway. I even did some imported games. Put over 500 hours in Monster Hunter Portable 3rd, and bought a second copy of Monster Hunter Portable 3rd HD for a friend so he and I could keep playing together. I haven't bought a Nintendo console to play Monster Hunter on because I didn't have the money at the time when they're coming out, and I wasn't planning on wasting my money away for just one game. Buying a console for one game just didn't make sense to me. Nintendo's library just didn't appeal to me, and I wasn't really into it. So with that, keep that all in mind as I'm talking about everything, so you kind of know that I'm not just some new guy coming in saying these things. Like, I've been with it since practically the very beginning, and I've seen it evolve, seen it develop, and really being able to take myself out of the whole fanboy scenario. I think I have some pretty decent ideas. So with that being said, let's move on. Let's focus on some good that Monster Hunter has done with Nintendo. So, like I said, being a Monster Hunter vet, it's great to see the series expanding. Obviously, they've just taken away with it, and they've done all sorts of new things with it, which is just great. The community has also grown with it, which is awesome. Obviously, the more you expand a game to different consoles, the more people it's going to attract. And the more people that play Monster Hunter, the more people that like it, the better it is. That's flat out how it is. They've also expanded the game with new monsters, maps, and weapons. Obviously, all sorts of new equipment that come with the new monsters, and new mechanics, which is the swimming and the Monster Hunter 4 parkour, which is interesting. I mean, who would have thought? Back in Monster Hunter 1, I was saying, it'd be sweet to climb on top of this thing and beat the shit out of it. Well, you can do that now. Get to that a little bit later, but it is pretty cool nonetheless. Also, it managed to stay strong considering it completely switched consumers. I think that kind of goes... I think that's a little underrated, honestly. Like, they took a series that had been on PlayStation completely throughout its lifestyle, with the exception of Frontier, but that's something different completely, really. And they switched it over to a whole new section, new console, new everything, by putting it on Nintendo. And it still got up quite a big fan base, quite an awesome community, and that just goes to show how great the game really is. And hopefully, it keeps on that trend in the future. Fans still stay with it, community stays strong. However, one of the main things it did in the same step is completely alienated consumers and fans alike by moving it away from the huge fan base it had grown on the PlayStation, the PlayStation systems and everything, just moving it away, completely kind of basically said fuck you to everyone who had grown up with it, which sucks, and that might happen in the future, but we'll have to see, So really, with where it's at now, with the recent successes Monster Hunter has had on the Nintendo systems, the next question is, how does Monster Hunter move forward? There's tons of games out there for it already, tons of different games in the series. What is the next step? Well, obviously, we all want Monster Hunter to be successful, and recently it started to show sort of a Call of Duty effect. Capcom has been using the same engine for Monster Hunter for a very long time, and yeah, I'll admit, Try-U looks pretty great. It really does. But if you spend just a little bit of time with it, even just watching YouTube videos, you notice there are some major improvements that could be made. Much like Call of Duty, Capcom is banking on the fact that the name will sell, just alone. By not spending vast amounts of money upgrading the game, they merely tweak certain elements to show improvement, and then they release it in hopes that everyone will just jump back in. The sad fact is that this does work in some cases, but maybe not how Capcom has planned. You see, the name is huge in Japan, just like Call of Duty's name is huge here in America. So naturally it'll sell just about no matter what over there. But in the States and Europe, Monster Hunter isn't very popular. The thing is, our consumers need better quality to spark interest in a game that doesn't have as quite a large fan base over here, such as like a first-person shooter. Monster Hunter isn't really fit in anything. It's not an RPG, it's not exactly an action, it's not really an adventure. It's sort of all of those thrown into one. And we just don't have a lot of appeal for that. And something that's has the 10-year-old engine and mechanics really isn't going to attract a lot of new people. Unless it's by word of mouth. That's pretty much how Monster Hunter has branched out already anyway. This is reflected in sales figures. I mean, you just take a look over at VG Charts. That's VGCharts with a Z.com. Monster Hunter Tri U sold twice as much in Japan as it did in either US or Europe. It's 0.22 million units to 0.11 and 0.10, respectively. So the main question is, how do we improve Monster Hunter to increase sales while pleasing the customers at the same time? Well, sit down, relax, leave all your biases at the door, alright? What's coming next is mostly well thought out knowledge, a little bit of opinion, a spice of fanboy, just a spice though. And we'll see how it goes. But try not to think too much into it. This is just sort of an idea of what would really help, coming from a consumer, Monster Hunter vet, someone who wants to see the series succeed. Just flat out succeed. No other addendums, just succeed. Alright, so Monster Hunter is huge in Japan. If you want sales, first and foremost, you have to target that area. So let's start with something simple. What are we going to put the next Monster Hunter on? Well, according to VG Charts, the most successful Monster Hunter games in Japan were the portable series. Selling 4.13 million units was Monster Hunter Portable 2nd G. Topping the charts for the single most sold Monster Hunter game in Japan is Portable 3rd with almost 5 million units. For some background info, Tri on the 3DS only sold 1.94 million units, while Tri on the Wii U only sold 1.05 million units. Almost a whole million of units difference between the portable game and the home console game. So what is one of the main things this can tell us? Primarily, people like Monster Hunter on portable consoles. I mean, let's face it, Monster Hunter on the go is a great idea. You can stop, start quests whenever you like, do some casual farming, or just meet up anywhere to knock off some difficult monsters. The game requires an immense amount of time. You really have to commit to it, and therefore the game being accessible at any time, wherever you're at, online or offline, really helps that quite a bit. And being able to bring it anywhere to play with friends, just because, if you're bored or something, I mean, it's perfect as what it is. It's, the true co-op game on the go. So, what consoles do we have to throw it on? Well, in a perfect world, we could put every Monster Hunter on every system and they would all be connected. You'd be able to play online with everyone. But that's never going to happen, sadly. So we need to narrow it down to essentially one to start with, just to make it less complicated for us right now. Now, I could be self-righteous, fanboy, and just say, throw it on PlayStation. I mean, obviously, put it on the Vita would mean a simple port to the PlayStation 3 or PlayStation 4. But really, you could say that about anything, like the 3DS and the Wii U. Put it on the 3DS. All right, great. Now we have a Wii U game. It's perfect. You deal with anything. You can't just say that. So you really have to sort of focus on what matters. Right now, we're focusing on capabilities. We need to improve. We need to upgrade Monster Hunter. New engine is probably the largest thing that needs to happen right now for Monster Hunter. What could take the best advantage of that? Well, sadly, the Wii U and the 3DS just don't stand up in hardware specs and capabilities to the PlayStation family. Microsoft doesn't even have a portable console, so Xbox can be ruled out for now. So, really, we're just sort of left with PlayStation. The Vita is an amazing machine, and its connectivity with the PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 4 primarily consoles, really makes it stand out. And really, this makes sense. Moving the series back to its original home would not only make game improvement sense, because the hardware capabilities for the Vita are just so profound compared to everything else. But also moving it back towards this long-lasting community and past sales successes, seeing as Monster Hunter is much more popular on Sony consoles and Nintendo consoles, just seems to make overall success sense. So, fuck it. Let's say we put the future Monster Hunter on PlayStation. What does this mean for Monster Hunter? What does this mean for PlayStation? Well, first off, better overall quality, considering the fact that the game engine would have to be updated, like revamped completely. The capabilities of the Vita can handle just about anything. It's the best handheld there is to date. And that's not a fanboy saying, that's just literal fact. Look at the hardware capabilities of it. It's great. It really is. Yes, the 3DS has the pretty badass 2 screens going on, but it's just, not to say it's behind the times, but it is behind the times. So the Vita bests it. It's just how it is. The Vita also has infrastructure options, so you're able to play online, and it also has a party mode. It's voice chat already integrated. Anywhere you go with the Vita, you have a mic, you have a headset built in, so you can always use voice chat, which is necessary for Monster Hunter. The Vita sales will increase, which, trust me, Sony needs. I mean, seriously, the Vita sucks right now. They're trying everything they can do to sell it, but they just can't. Every notable gaming site, reviewers, etc., blah, 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 have stated that the Vita initially did not sell well because it does not contain Monster Hunter in its library. And you can refute this all you want, but let's look at some of the most represented games on the Vita at the moment. Soul Sacrifice, Ragnarok Odyssey, God Eater, Tokaiden, hell, I'll even throw Dynasty Warriors Next in there. They're all practically Monster Hunter clones. Sony clearly realizes what they need for the Vita to be successful, and they keep pushing all these spin-off games, which in them by themselves are great games. I platinum Soul Sacrifice, awesome game. I beat Ragnarok Odyssey. I played God Eater. Haven't played Tokaiden. Played Dynasty Warriors Next. Beat the hell out of that. But they're all clones, and they don't come close to they come close to Monster Hunter, but they're just not it. They don't satisfy that thirst. The longevity for the games just isn't there. Each one has their own separate issues, and each one is a great game in themselves, but if you played Monster Hunter and that's something you're looking for, by buying one of these other games, I'll call them spin-off games, you're not going to get that satisfaction. So, hopefully by putting Monster Hunter on the Vita, Vita sales will increase. That's good news for Sony, and good news for Capcom with Monster Hunter, obviously, because it would be bought together for the most part. So, also, we need to look at the fact that Vita is a tool, like I said earlier. Right now, one of its main selling points is pairing it with the new PlayStation 4. And part of that is because the Vita isn't really strong enough to stand on its own. The game library isn't huge. It's not a great media service or media device because it's so big. But if you pair it with the PlayStation 4, it really has some value. Especially with remote play is one of the biggest selling points of it. So it really doesn't need to stand alone. So here's what I'm offering. If Capcom really wants to show their initiative, really break that Call of Duty mold that it's fallen into, and get back in the game with some big successes, back into those upper 4 millions of units sold compared to the lower 1 million units sold, as it's recently seen per game, they should consider putting Monster Hunter on the PlayStation 4. And I'm not talking about a port, not a Monster Hunter 4 port, not a Monster Hunter Tri-Ultimate port, not a Monster Hunter Frontier Online port. A brand new game for next gen. Something developed exclusively to succeed for next generation, to set the new bar for Monster Hunter games. Let's revamp the whole thing, reintroduce people into this series. Let's be successful. Now, let me tell you a little bit about what the next-gen Monster Hunter could be like. First off, we've already concluded that it would seem most successful on the PlayStation consoles. Potentially. So you could optimize Monster Hunter for the best experience ever on the PlayStation by allowing cross-play. Vita and the PlayStation 4 working together. Obviously, you start on the PlayStation 4, pick it up with the Vita. The same thing they've done with the Wii and 3DS. Only in this case, because the Vita is such a powerful machine, there'd be no loss in quality. Hell, you could even remote play, and it worked just fine. I've tried it remote play before on the PlayStation 4, and it works really well. That interconnectivity would really make the game stand out. Any combination of PS4 and Vitas will be able to play together online, so there's no I have to plug in or put in my Wii U to play my 3DS online with multiple people. No, because the Vita has capabilities to play online by itself. So you can play online with however many PS4, however many Vita people you want, any sort of different, 3 PS4, 1 Vita, 2 of each, whatever you want. 4 Vita, 4 PS4. There will be no limits there, making it crossplay like that. Also, it have amazing graphics. Hell, Capcom, dig out the Pan-Array engine. Outsource that a little bit, why don't you? Put it on the next Monster Hunter game. Because currently, as I've stated, Monster Hunter looks decent. But really, look close, you'll find it's only the equipment and monsters. The towns, the textures, the environments, the particle effects, they're awful. They really are. It's GBA stuff right there. You need to improve everything. Make the environments dance. You need to make the motion smoother, a lot less choppy. You need to revamp the system to create amazing environments, like I said. You need the wind, storms, lightning elements, and interaction. There's a little bit shown in Monster Hunter Portable 3rd. We've seen some stuff where certain things will break in the environment, but they look terrible when they break. They just fall apart and disappear. No, you need to have something last. You need to make the environments change to affect the battle. You need the wind when you're facing Kushala Daora to really get at you. You need the storm. You need to feel it in the environment. You can't have these terrible lighting effects that are just sort of half-assed anymore. But then again, you also need to make sure that the Vita can handle this, which it should be able to. And if it can't, you need to dumb down the Vita, the mobile, or the portable version a little bit. But you need to remember what's important. You can't just dumb down the environments. You can't just dumb down one specific thing, and then we fall right back in the same thing we were at with all the other Monster Hunters. You need to make sure everything gets toned back just a little bit, if necessary, to make sure everything still retains that holistic look of an improved game. All right? You can't have any sort of choppiness between character and environment and monster anymore. That's not going to cut it anymore. And hopefully, if this were to be developed for the PlayStation, on the PlayStation 4 and the Vita, there will be no problem with that. It should be able to handle that. Also, fast loading times. Monster Hunter is set up in stages on the map when you go onto a quest. Those loading times have always been an issue. On the PSP, it was more of an issue than it has been on the Wii. They've improved drastically. But now with installed games and just better hardware, that will essentially be non-existent as an issue. Even when you start a quest, when you're syncing everyone up, that should go much smoother. That has been an issue in the past with PlayStation Portal. I've seen it as an issue on the Wii U, on the 3DS, with people dropping as they start quests. Not good. The time drops very fast, and you're just sitting there waiting at the loading screen. Also, voice chat. There was only after a patch was there voice chat on Tri Ultimate. Like, what's with that? Improved chat functionality on the PS4 means even better hunting experiences. And you also have that with the Vita, because every Vita essentially has a built-in mic. It does. And even on the PlayStation 4, you don't have a mic, but even every single one does come with one. And with the controller, all you have to do is just plug in any sort of mic, and it should work. Even headsets that aren't supported, like the Pulse Elite line. Separate rant there. But still, you need voice chat support in Monster Hunter. You can't just have keyboard anymore, and that will be a lot easier with the PlayStation 4 and Vita lines. Also, making the next Monster Hunter game, it can't just be something that is going to be built up on later. No longer do we have room for Monster Hunter Freedom Second, Monster Hunter Freedom Unite. Oh, here's just a new game with an expansion on it. That's not going to cut it. DLC, that's fine, but that's different. So in order to rectify this, we need to utilize past entries to create one massive game. Alright, Monster Hunter Freedom Unite had like the most content ever. I believe it's somewhere around 900 different armor sets. Try Ultimate, I think, has around 400 different armor sets. Quite the large gap there. However, if you add Ultimate, or even Monster Hunter 4 monsters and maps, you could really make that game last a long time, giving it the longest longevity in any Monster Hunter series there is, with the exception of Frontier Online. But again, that sort of doesn't really count in this discussion, because it's quite a different Monster Hunter game, although it really needs an engine upgrade nonetheless. Now, I'm not saying that this needs to turn into an MMO. It needs to stay within the current theme of the series. Constant progression, not the MMO feel. Keep it how it is and how we've seen it. Online structure could be improved. Remove the current ad hoc like small room selection. Revert back to original large rooms. 10 to 20 hunters in a town, or essentially a lobby, and place in the town the hotel, armory, shops, everything you need, so you wouldn't have to go back offline, which was an issue with the PSP. Quite annoying. If you want to change armor sets or something, you had to completely go offline again. Keep it all online. And of course, include the tavern, because it's a tavern. That's where you go to have fun. You get drunk before a hunt. That's why you do naked hunts. People who've been playing for a while know what those are. This sort of flow, 10 to 20 hunters, doesn't bind hunters together and allows for more people to do what they want by changing up parties in between quests. Obviously, you could have text chat in there. You could have any sort of voice chat setup. But just having that large group together, being able to change things out. Oh, I want to do this. I want to do this. All right, you go with them. We'll take on this guy for this quest. It lets you get a lot more things done. It creates a smoother experience. Now, let's move on to what the gameplay could be like in the next Monster Hunter. I just have to say, keep it original. Lately, Monster Hunter's been transforming into something it isn't. Most people I've talked to since Monster Hunter came out on the Wii, up until just the other day, are either against or impartial to the underwater battles and the parkour found in the latest titles. While it certainly adds some excitement and a little bit of diversity to the game, it does pull away from it by appearing sort of cheap and gimmicky. After all, the parkour is sort of choppy. The camera angles are all over the place. Those have been an issue since Monster Hunter 1, and it just doesn't really flow. If you were to improve that system, become more fluid, more reliant on skill, then this could actually be a pretty neat feature. Underwater fighting right now sort of changes things up a little bit. It's a little easier to fight underwater, and that's not what Monster Hunter is about. We'll get to that in a little bit. Now, when Monster Hunter moved to the Wii, there was a push to make the series more family-friendly, and this is not Monster Hunter. That's not a part of what the game makes it so unique, though, is this whole theme of eliteness. It's sort of like Dark Souls, where the game is meant to be difficult. So you look at any Monster Hunter game, even some of the recent ones, even though they have pulled away from it, the game relies entirely on skill. You could have the best equipment in the game and still get your ass handed to you. This needs to remain constant, absolutely. Keep this part original to the true Monster Hunter games that started all of this. Without the large necessity of skill and self-improvement, long-time and hardcore fans are going to drop out anyway. So you're just shooting yourself in the foot if you try and make it more family-friendly, more easier for other people to join. That's part of the fun of Monster Hunter, is playing a game that not everyone can play right away, that you have to commit some time to, that you need to get better at. They really need to remove some of the luck in the game. Another main factor in enjoying Monster Hunter is that everyone starts on the same level. We're all given the same opportunities to succeed. I'm not saying increase drop rates in the next Monster Hunter game. Some of the best nights were spent farming Rathalos rubies till about 5 a.m. I'm saying just take a look at Ruststone and Charm system, primarily. Currently, I don't know if you know this, but Monster Hunter employs a system that varies what charms and Ruststones you can actually get. Everyone who starts the game is on a different category containing different outcomes. One person may be able to get a charm that gives plus 10 to sharpness and plus 4 to knockout, while any other person may never be able to get that same charm. This creates an unrealized segregation system, which locks players out from maximizing their abilities. I personally enjoy seeing the whole charm system disappear. It'd be kind of nice to me. Reverting back, that would allow it to revert back to what was just relying on each armor piece and what you could socket with it, which is a really cool system that was introduced earlier on in this series, and I'd like to obviously that continue. But really, you can't just get rid of the whole charm system. So really, a healthy balance would be just place all the possible charms in one table instead of spreading them out. That way, everyone has access to each charm, and just enough farming will get you the charm you want. Not one of those things where you're stuck farming and you don't realize that, but you will never get that good charm. You will never get that set that your friend made. You'll never be able to be as good as them, as properly equipped and prepared as them. That needs to go away. Everyone needs to be put on level footing. Also, we need to vary up the epic battles. This is sort of going back to expanding Monster Hunter for with all the different series that have already been out there. So instead of having just Lao, Gaoren, or Gen, some of those really epic, those different fights, really need to space those out, fill up the game's repertoire, vary it up a little bit. Make those important quests, but don't just make it one or the other. Don't have it, okay, you got to fight Lao, you got to fight him again when you're going to HR 10, and again when you're going to HR 20. No, mix things up a little bit, Make it more interesting in that case. Hell, more fights like that would be pretty sweet for major HR rank increases. Talking a little bit more about online, try and bring back these scheduled online events. We currently have download quests, different events online, which is pretty sweet, and we should continue to do so. But there should be another category that is more predictable. In Monster Hunter 1, every week there was a different quest out of a rotation. You could always find out what was going to come up the next week. These quests were never really exclusion events, in that you could only get like a specific item for this quest when it came around once every 10 weeks. No, it wasn't like that. There are quests that help out earlier players by offering them different monsters that they may not have access to yet, or slightly higher drop rates for items, different monsters that you might not normally be able to get. For instance, 1 week out of like a 14-week rotation, the whole week you could play a Lao quest, Lao Shan Lung. But most people in Monster Hunter 1, unless you didn't have access to them, unless you were HR 18 up to 20. So if you're underneath that, you're kind of screwed. But during that week, you could farm Lao as much as you wanted. It just really helped segue new players to getting their stuff, to helping fuel them on further into the game. Also, you need to equalize weapon availability. In every Monster Hunter game to date, there's always weapons that get shafted. For instance, why is there only one lightning element choice for weapon class X? Or why are there no rust weapons for weapon class Y? I'm not saying make every weapon class identical with a clear best weapon. Oh, you need to use this one to succeed. This is going to be the best no matter what. But you really need to add more variation to the weapon classes. No longer is it acceptable to have one weapon class not have a large variety of fire element or raw damage, and another class dominate in that. All weapons should be on equal footing, but still have enough variation to provide healthy discussion and healthy debate over which weapon should be used against which monster. Bring back dual element weapons and make them more prevalent. There are still some dual element weapons floating around in some of the recent titles, but primarily they were in Unite, only on dual swords. Really expand that. Take a play from Frontier's book, and push dual element weapons to other weapon classes. I mean, too many monsters are weak to one element, so bring away some of the other elements and make some of the other elements more useful. For instance, a lot of things are weak to fire, not so much weak to water. Mix that up a little bit. Make some of those elements more useful, so you get more use out of all your different weapons. So you have to really think about what you're bringing into the battle. Those dual element weapons are really useful. Make some monsters weak to those, like fire and ice. Oddly enough, I don't know how you'll do it, but you could find a way. Or, obviously, the marathon quests are very useful for that. Even more useful is tying the status effects, really the ailments, with elements. For instance, one of the best combos you could use was the Lightning Paralyzed duels in Unite that were devastating against Plesioth. Things like that are difficult to get but really rewarding against a specific monster are great to have would be great to have in the future titles of Monster Hunter. Now, that's just sort of an overview of things that could be improved, things that should be introduced in the next Monster Hunter. And there's tons more that anyone could argue. That's personally what I feel would make a great next Monster game, if you really vamped up those things but kept everything else essentially the same. Really relying on skill, really keeping the whole theme of the game as it has been. Go in, hunt, don't even worry about a story, collect your armor and weapons, and keep going, because there's so many different things to collect, you're never going to stop. And that's the issue that is found with a lot of the Monster Hunter clone games recently. There's just no real replayability in there, because you collect a certain amount of armors and certain weapons or skills, and you realize that, well, this weapon is really all I need for half the game, or these skills are really all I ever use. I kind of ignore everything else. Well, Monster Hunter, there's so much different variation in monsters you need to fight that the different weapons and armors are always used. You can always find a use for something you make, even if it's just to have fun with something, and you don't find that in any other game. So moving on, what are we going to call this next Monster Hunter? Personally, call it anything. I don't care. But don't call it Monster Hunter 5. The next Monster Hunter game that should be on next gen with a new engine, vastly improved, should not be the next number in a series. Call it something original. Monster Hunter Next, maybe. MHN, Monhun. Monster Hunter Complete. Why not simply Monster Hunter? Bring it back. Start from the scratch. No one remembers that Monster Hunter 1 back in the PS2 days. Start it off brand new, simply Monster Hunter. Also, if you really want it to be successful, we really need to focus on promoting it, bringing it out in the States and Europe, not only just in Japan, obviously, because the name most likely will sell in there pretty well to start things off. So how are we going to really bring Monster Hunter about to get it fueled? First off, get rid of that ridiculous Scottish Viking commercials. Make some real commercials. Showcase the game's new graphics, how it relies on skill so much. Call us all pansies for not trying it and being awful at it when we do, for all I care. But you really got to improve that. It's got to showcase the game for what it is, not for what it's trying to be. It's got to show that it is different, and people are going to have to look at it and say, okay, I've never seen anything like this, or I've seen things like this. What makes this thing different? I got to try it. Also, bundle it. Vita plus Monster Hunter bundle. That thing would sell so damn fast, you have no idea. It would be crazy. Preferably PlayStation 4 plus Vita versions cross-buy on the PlayStation Store. It's all digital sales. You're really not losing anything. Buy the PlayStation 4 version, get the Vita version for free. Hell, you could even do that in store with a voucher for the Vita. But bundle them together, and that spells nothing but success right there. And then they're probably going to buy a Vita as well if they don't already have one. Keep branching out in the series. What's been done in the past, what I mean by this is the cross-console, cross-product promotions. For instance, Famitsu has tons of promotions in Monster Hunter, even up till recently. And keep those coming. What we really need to focus on is to target the US and EU crowds, though. So other games that have been targeted, like Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker, should continue to be targeted. Promote Monster Hunter in other games and bring other games into Monster Hunter. Just getting that word out that, hey, this is something great. We're throwing it in other games to make cameos. That's going to spark some interest. That's going to pull other people in that normally wouldn't have seen it. And really, we need to show how different it is. The large community is already formed, and we need to expand. We need to expand a lot. Show that it is the game that Sony's been wanting to get, compared to Ragnarok, Odyssey, or Soul Sacrifice. Show that the replayability there is just immense. You really need to have a larger showcase for the game. You can't just half-ass it with commercials, and can't just rely on cross promotions in different games. While those all help, we really need more. You really got to bring Monster Hunter to the States at big gaming conventions. You got to showcase it. I mean, you guys have a freaking theme park in Japan for Monster Hunter. Really bring it out. Put up big ol' fucking signs everywhere you can. Big contraptions, events at these gaming conventions to show that this is a big deal. You need to pay attention to it. That's going to draw some attention for sure. And hell, even make new products lines centered on Monster Hunter World. That's in Japan already with the adorable cat dolls, the keychains, gaming accessories, t-shirts, boxers, whatever whatever there is. Slowly introduce that into the States, and you'll see that shit everywhere. I mean, some of the monsters in Monster Hunter are some of the coolest things I've ever seen. The Rathalos, the Barioth, those things are awesome looking. Put that shit on a goddamn coffee mug, and people are going to eat that up. And they're going to wonder where it's from. Monster Hunter, boom, sale, right there. Everything available in Japan, for the most part, should start to become more available in the United States and U.S. The more you target different demographics, different groups with different products, the more you're going to bring people towards the game. And they won't even realize it's happening until they have the game in their hands and they're loving it and they're telling all their friends. So really, all I want to see is Monster Hunter be successful. And right now, in my personal opinion, and a few others that I've talked to, and basically from what I've seen, as far as sales going on, Monster Hunter is starting to fall down. It is not being the most successful that it could be. I won't say what that's due to. Hell, I don't even know. But pay attention to some of the things I said in the past half hour, and hell, maybe we could make a change. Maybe we could really bring about a brand new Monster Hunter that encompasses everything we want and then some, and it'll keep us going for a while. That's really all I have for now. If you liked this quote-unquote video, this sort of soapbox monologue speech thing, share it. Put it out there. Show Capcom, Monster Hunter developers that this is what we want. We're not happy with the Call of Duty effect that's been going on. We need a game upgrade, a game improvement to really keep us coming back. The only way you can do that is through support. So just keep supporting, keep sharing the word of Monster Hunter, keep doing what you do. But that's pretty much all I have. So thank you for watching. Capcom, hope you're listening. Merely, I'm just telling you what the consumer wants. Hopefully you want the same thing. Like, comment, rate, subscribe, guys. Take it easy.